A warm welcome to all of you to this session on a hands-on workshop in new perspectives on PowerPoint presentation. If we see, we hear, we forget, we see, we remember, we do, we understand. This quote itself explains to us how important PPT slides and visual communication in our teaching learning process. So as a culture and tradition, let us all invoke the goddess of learning, Saraswati, to shower her blessings on us by singing Saraswati Vandana. I now deem it my privilege to introduce the guest speaker, Dr. Malavika Sharma, to all of you. Dr. Malavika Sharma is a researcher and ELT trainer who enjoys designing activities that focuses on the 4 basic language skills. Her research is deeply rooted in game-based learning and metacognitive strategies that transcends the boundaries of mere entertainment and fun. She is a full-time faculty in Pillai College of Engineering, where she teaches the undergraduate students. Her doctorate was in the field of applied linguistics from the University of Mumbai on test-taking strategies in reading comprehension. She has published papers at various national and international journals and likes to keep herself involved in multiple ELT projects and in writing poems and short stories. Thank you so much, ma'am, for accepting our invitation. On behalf of the Department of General Sciences and Humanities, please accept our token of gratitude with a sapling.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you.
Ma'am, the stage is all yours now.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Good afternoon, dear teachers. Before I begin my talk, I would like to thank Professor Sharmila ma'am for giving me this opportunity to share my views, my ideas, and also learn in the process. And I would like to say at the outset that the entire presentation will be my journey of learning how to improve on my PowerPoint presentations and my slides. And I'll be giving examples from my slides, which I had done earlier, that is at the beginning of my career, and now how I prepare my slides. So you can get an idea that even we can also transform, our slides and change our slides as per the needs and the requirements. So with this, I would like to share my screen. So kindly give me the confirmation if my screen is visible. So I'll be turning off my video because you get a better perspective of the slides that I'll be showing you. So I'll be turning off my video right now. So when as required, I'll be turning on my video from time to time.
Yes, your screen is visible.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. So I'll be dividing my talk in 2 parts. The first part, I'll be talking about the different aspects that we need to keep in mind while designing PowerPoint presentations. And the next part of my talk will deal with a hands-on experience or a hands-on workshop on how to design your own slides. So I begin the talk first of all by talking about the mind-blowing PowerPoint presentations. So before I start with this, I would like to tell you all that presentations have become a normal part of our life. In every aspect, we have to give presentation, whether we use the PowerPoint slides or we do not use the PowerPoint slides. So while appearing for interviews or when you are participating in a seminar or in this online, offline or in online mode during the pandemic, we realized that we have to impart information to the students using PowerPoint slides. So we were forced to design PowerPoint slides, even though we never did earlier, but we were doing it. So it has become a part of our life now. So what is understood that when we design a PowerPoint slides, we only think of from our perspective, like from our own perspective, that is how conveniently we will be able to remember the points, how convenient it is for us to understand the points that we have written. So most of the time it happens in the process that the audience, they get bored of the presentations and they might even go off to sleep. So during the online mode, we did never realize that maybe our students, they were getting bored because we didn't have an interaction with the students. There were only a few of them who would unmute themselves and ask questions. Most of them would be passive listeners, and we even did not know whether they were listening or they were involved in the learning process. So in this kind of a situation, what we need to do is we need to change our approach towards presentation. So today's talk will be basically dealing with that aspect. So I'll be dividing my structure of my presentation in three parts. First part, I will talk about audience analysis. Second part, I'll deal with the role of the speaker. And the third part, I will talk about content delivery. So let us start with audience analysis first. So in audience analysis, so before we even start preparing for the slides, we need to ask ourselves the question as to who are the audience. Now, Sharmila madam was so kind enough to tell me that your audience are the teachers. So therefore, accordingly, I planned my presentation, because when I know that my audience, I have to plan my presentation in such a way so that my audience is drawn towards my presentation. So had I known that my audience were the students, then of course it would have been a different planning altogether. The approach would have been different. So who are my audience? What is it that the audience are expecting from my presentation? What is it that they want to learn from my presentation? What do they know about about the particular topic? All these questions should come to your mind before even we start planning for the content. So accordingly, we plan the content and we try to develop an interest in the minds of the audience. So developing an interest is the most important factor after we do the audience analysis, and then also meet the expectations of the audience. Like as teachers, you will be expecting some additional information, because I got to know that you already have a fair idea about how to design PowerPoint slides. So you want something more from my presentation. So I should be able to meet your expectations. And of course, I should also share with you the knowledge that I have regarding this PowerPoint presentation. And in the process, what I can do is I can help you to transform your PowerPoint presentations. I can help you to transform your slides and change your slides in order to suit your audience and to make the session an interactive one. So with this, I would like to go to the first part of audience analysis, that is interest. So here I would take you to the interest part, and here I would say that we can develop an interest in the audience by actually trying to find out how we can present our ideas in a much better way. So I would say that presenting ideas is not an easy task. So I would like to say that there are certain aspects that we have to keep in mind. Simply writing down the points is not sufficient. There are other things that we need to keep in mind while we are presenting ideas. So I will be dealing with them one by one. So suppose if I say that we need to start big. Okay, so here I would give you an example of my slide over here. So what is the concept of start big over here? Can anybody unmute themselves and tell me what is the relevance of starting big? Why do we start big? Anybody who can unmute themselves and you can tell me?
To draw the attention of the audience.
Okay, very good. Yes, ma'am. Yes, that's right. Anybody else? Okay, so I'll move ahead. I would like to say that when I say start big, I mean to say that at the title of the presentation, it should be in large font size, and we should be able to identify the key word in the title itself. So for example, in this particular slide, I have increased the font size of the keyword. So here the font keyword is communication. So the font size has been increased to the extent possible. So why am I doing it? Because I want to draw the attention of the audience to this particular topic or this particular point. And I want to tell them that my presentation will be focused on communication. That means I am going to talk about the different aspects of communication. So that is one point. Secondly, by increasing the font size in my title slide, I am increasing the visibility of my the content. So in the first slide, the title slide, I do not have any content. So I can increase the font size to the maximum possible. So that is important. So you can see, the comparison, my slide only. So towards the left hand slide will be the slides, which are recently designed, and towards the right hand side will be the slides which were designed earlier in the beginning of my career. So you can see this particular slide on the right hand side. So that first of all, the title of the slide, it is too long, number one. Secondly, the same font size is applicable, so the audience is not able to identify the keyword over here, the keyword in the title. So the audience will not be very clear with what exactly the presentation is going to be about. So this kind of mistakes we have to avoid while designing our presentations. And the next part I will be telling you about is points. How do we write the points? Now this might be quite familiar to you that the points have to be written in a particular manner. Still, I would like to recollect, all of you to recollect. First of all, we have to keep in mind that there should be only 4 to 5 points per slide. We are not going to go beyond 5 points. Now, why 4 to 5 points when everything can be added in one single point and one single slide? Why do we need to add only 4 to 5 points and then jump on to the next? The answer is that when we have 4 to 5 points, that means, it becomes easier for the audience to grasp the information. They will be they will be able to understand whatever I'm saying. Moreover, this 4 to 5 points will also allow the presenter to only spend very less time per slide. It could be timed, so he can spend very or she can spend very less time per slide, and that is very important. Then the next aspect is the time. As I told you, the time is an important factor. We cannot spend more than 2 minutes per slide. If we spend more than 2 minutes, again it becomes very monotonous, it becomes very boring for the audience. So the audience will not enjoy our presentation at all. Next is numbering. If we number our main points, as you must have seen in my flow of my presentation, that I have numbered the points and the main points that I will be talking about. And so this numbering will not only help the presenter in organizing the content, but it will also help the audience to keep a track of what the presenter is presenting, and also to keep a note of that we are still on the first point. There's so many elements on the first point, then we'll move on to the second point, and so on, so that easily they can recollect and they can associate what they have read in the layout or the flow of the presentation. And then as I told you, the logically organizing your ideas is very important. It is very important to plan your presentation. So planning is the most important requirement, and your planning can be done only when you know who are your audience, only when you have a better idea, better understanding of your audience, and you are able to reflect or able to go back to your presentation and find out in what way you can improve your presentation. This is a sample that I have over here, where you can see that there are only 4 points added in a particular slide. Now, let us move on to the next aspect. That is, I'm giving you an example of this 4 to 5 point rule from my PowerPoint slides that I have created. So this is what I have recently done, and you can see that I have included, the title with a different font size, and the subtopics in a different font size, and the main points, in a different font size with, the images. So it becomes very easy for the audience to grasp the information, and it also looks very appealing. Here you can see my slide, which I had designed earlier, and here you can see that, there are more than 5 points, and moreover, there is no difference between the title of the slide and the content of the slide in terms of the font size, and so therefore it looks a little bit haphazard, and so we have to avoid doing such mistakes. I have learned from my mistakes actually. So I'll give you another example of numbering. As you can see, I have used the numbering concept over here for showing the structure of my presentation. And here I have not shown the numbering. So and moreover, there are long sentences that I have used. So they are not complete sentences, no doubt, but then a lot of information that I have incorporated in this particular slide. And so therefore it becomes really difficult for the audience, to remember or to understand, to even associate themselves to be a part of the presentation. So we have to avoid these mistakes. And then next, I would like to go on to the key phrases. So again, this concept is known to us all, that we have to identify the key phrases. Now, what do we mean by identifying the key phrases? I mean that we have to only select the necessary information. So most of the time we are not sure what is necessary information. So we tend to select information that is necessary for us. But we have to think from the perspective of the audience, and we have to select information that for the audience it is necessary, or it will be useful for the audience. And accordingly, we have to design we have to organize our points. And then it has to be short, not very long. It has to be short. There has to be standard spacing, and of course the grids for alignment. And now I would like to take you to the grids. I would like to show what are the grids actually. So I'll just move out from my full screen mode. So you can see the grids. If you can see this picture that I have included over here, suppose if I move this picture, you can see these lines over here. Those are called as the grids. So the lines will help you to align your picture. And this is very important. We have to make use of this, because the grids will tell you whether our spacing is correct or we need to make improvement in our spacing. Okay, so this is the concept of the grids. And we should use these grids in all aspects, not only while putting the picture. We need to use the grids, while trying to measure the height or the length, everything. We can use the grids. And in fact, we can go to this view option over here. If we can see view option over here, and we can enable the grids option. If you go to view, so for example, if I click here, view, you can see this grid lines. So if you just click on this grid lines, so every time you can see the grid lines, and that will actually help you to design your presentation in a much more systematic manner. Okay, going back to my presentation once again. So now we know that this is an example of bad proximity. I'm just giving an example over here where the spacing of the pictures is not appropriate, and the heading underneath or at the side of the picture, it's not very clear. And so therefore, this is an example of bad proximity. So now let me give you an example of the keywords from my slide. So as you can see over here, on this slide, I have numbered them, and also I have identified the keywords, and I've reduced, the number of words, in the slide to such an extent so that the audience can easily remember and easily read and understand as well. So it is better readability with this kind of slides. Whereas in the slides that I designed earlier, you can see that except for the last 3 points, the first 2 points, they're quite long. It could have been reduced to the keywords. For example, instead of saying familiarizing learners with the concept of metacognition, I could have just said the concept of metacognition. Okay, and I could have used those words, familiarize learners, on my own, instead of writing it down. So the concept of metacognition, I'll be talking about the concept of metacognition, and the next point also, implement the concept. Instead of repeating implement the concept of metacognition, I could have simply used implement the concept. So that would have been much more easier for the learners or the audience to read and understand. Okay, this way we have to identify the necessary information or the keywords. And another example I'll be giving you about the aesthetic use of space. Now in this particular slide, you can see how I have used space. And there are empty spaces, around the picture or around the information that I have given. So that is also required. The slide should not be overcrowded with lot of information or with lot of pictures. We can have one picture, one large picture, in order to represent the information or in order to indicate the information that we want to convey. And whereas in this particular slide, which I showed earlier, so this kind of overcrowded slide does not help the audience to grasp the information. They get easily bored and distracted. So it has to be interesting for the audience, the way you present the information. Now I can give you another example of enhancing visibility. So this is the way the visibility can be enhanced. As you can see, I have used the images, the pictures in such a way so that it complements the message rather than, far removed from the message. Most of the time, the pictures are used or the pictures are put into the slide because you want to add an image into the slide. You do not, maybe most of the time, we do not understand, whether it is relevant to the message that we are conveying. So therefore, to select a picture which is relevant to the content, that is very important. And as you can see, I have used the pictures to make it more relevant to suit the purpose of my presentation over here. Whereas in this particular slide, I couldn't find any example of my slide, my presentations where there was poor visibility. So I took this slide from the internet, and you can see over here from the title itself, you can identify that there is poor visibility. So apart from the main title, the subtopic of this title, is not visible to the audience. There's very poor visibility, and moreover, the images, there are so many images. Maybe the presenter can speak about these images, but it does not help the audience to identify the difference in the images. So even if the presenter explains, it could be very difficult for the audience to understand, and very difficult for the audience to actually view the images with clarity. There is no clarity in the images. So this kind of mistakes we have to avoid in our presentation. Then now we move on to the next aspect, that is appropriate fonts. Now this aspect also you might be having a fair idea of what do I mean by font size and font style, but nevertheless, let me just repeat some of the information that you already know about. So first we have to keep in mind the 30-90 point rule. Now the 30-point rule is that the content that we incorporate in the slide, that has to be 30 points, that is 30 size. It cannot be less than 30. And the title of each slide, should be above 30, above 40, in fact, not above 30, it has to be above 40. And maximum, it can go on to 90. So depending upon the design of your slide, or depending upon the selection of your font style, you can decide whether it can be 40 or 44 or 50. It depends on that. Now, for example, in my design, since I did not use the entire space of the slide, I have created this circle, and inside this circle, I have included all the points. So therefore, maximum I could increase up to 44 size, the title of this slide, whereas the content I have kept it in 30, and I have selected a font style which does not show that it is 30 point, but actually it is 30 point. It does not indicate that, because different font size style will have a different way of representing 44 and 30 point. Okay, so this point we have to remember. and then there should be uniformity. So if you observe in all my slides, I have kept the heading as 44, and the content of the slides, I have kept it as 30 point in, and it is uniform throughout the presentation. I have not changed, I have not altered this uniformity. And then comes a clarity. So we have to select a font style, that is clear. It should not be confusing for the readers when they're reading it. So some of the font styles, if you observe that when we select that, they look very appealing because of the style, but then it becomes very difficult to identify whether it is a P or an F, or whether it is an L or an M. It becomes very difficult to identify. So all this could be very confusing. We have to see to it that there is clarity in the font style that we select, and we have to avoid over highlighting. So what are the ways we can highlight is, we can highlight when we use capital letters, we can highlight by using, by underlining a particular word. We can also use it in italics, or we can, make it bold. So these are the different ways of highlighting information. Now we should not overdo such things. So we should not try and put in all the information in a slides in all capital letters, because that will not differentiate between the title and the content. So we should have a mixture of the lowercase and the uppercase, and that becomes more appealing for the audience, as well as it is, it is visibly, the visibility of the content is also better. And of course, it makes it more readable, and it makes it more presentable also to the audience. So all these things we have to keep in mind. Overdoing something, sometimes we can use the italics also, but then we should not overdo. We should not try to use it repeatedly. That is what I mean by saying that we should avoid over highlighting. Next, now let me go on to the next aspect. This is an example of bad fonts. So we can see that the person has used, two or more fonts in one particular slide. So we have to restrict ourselves to using only one font style in one particular slide, or throughout the presentation, we have to use only one font style. We are not supposed to change between the fonts, so that we have to avoid doing it. And it does not, increase the visibility, or it does not enhance the beauty of the slides. In fact, it has a poor response, when we use number of font styles in one slide or in different slides. Then comes the next example, font style and size. I'm going to show you my example over here. As you can see over here, so I have highlighted, or rather I have used the capital letters for the title of the slide, and also I've highlighted the title by using the bold font, and then I have also included a lowercase font over here, where I'm giving the definition of the concept of cognition, and then when I'm explaining the different aspects related to cognition, I'm using the capital letter, but it has a reduced font style size. Now, in this presentation, in this particular slide on the right hand side, you can see, that there's no difference between the title of the slide and the content of the slide. Though the information is very limited, but still, there's no difference. And so title of the slide and the content is the same font style and the same font size as well. So this I have to, make changes, and I have to transform these changes, because I have to be able to differentiate, the ability to differentiate between what is the title, and the ability to differentiate between the title and the content. That is very important, and that I have to help the readers to understand, or the audience to understand, on the basis of how I use the font size and the font style. That is very important. And moreover, I would say over here that we are not supposed to use the Times New Roman when we are dealing with presentations. Times New Roman is supposed to be actually the standard form, or the standard style of font that has been accepted for writing, research papers, or for writing any information in using the word document. So it could be research papers, research proposals, or an article. Okay, so that is all right. But then when we are using the the font style in presentation, we have to avoid using Times New Roman because it is not an appealing font style. We have to use other font styles that are available. There is a list of font style that is available. We can even go to Google and we can select a font style, and we can incorporate it in PowerPoint, and that becomes a unique font style that we have selected. So this is how we have to be very particular about the selection of the font style. Next, I would go on to the combination of upper and lower case. I'm just giving an example from my slide. Here I have combined, upper and lower case because, as I told you, I use the uppercase in order to help the audience identify the key word in my presentation. And here, mastering soft skills, that is actually the key concept of my presentation. So therefore, I have used the uppercase font over here, and the rest of the font is at the lower case. And here in this particular slide, you can see that the title, doesn't have is not written in the uppercase, and also the content is written. The font size is the same, the font style is the same. So all these things we have to avoid, when we are giving a presentation. If you want to make a presentation more appealing and more effective. Next, we move on to the next aspect, that is use of punctuation. Now, the question arises is, why can't we use punctuation, when we are writing our points in the slides? The point is that when we cannot use punctuation because we are identifying key phrases or necessary information. So when we are identifying necessary information, we are not actually writing complete sentences. So if we do not write complete sentences, it is not possible for us, to include the punctuation. It is not right, grammatically correct to use the punctuation at the end of the sentence. So we have to avoid using punctuation when we are giving a presentation or designing our points. And of course, we are not supposed to use capital letters all the time, but we can use capital letters in order to emphasize, in order to highlight a particular point, in order to draw the attention of the audience to a particular point. So that can be used, but it should be used sparingly. And then comes the next aspect, that is avoiding punctuation. I'm giving you an example from my slide. I have not used punctuation over here, but this slide which I have borrowed, because again I couldn't find any slide of mine where I've used punctuation, so I have borrowed this slide from internet. And as you can see, everywhere there is a full stop at the end of the sentence. So all these things we are going to avoid, while designing our points or while placing our points. And then the next thing we are going to talk about is the expectations. That is the next point of audience analysis. So expectations of the audience expect, that the presenter will give them, as I told you, additional information. And so we have to live up to those expectations. So suppose it is the topic is about presentation and I'm talking about something else. So the audience is very frustrated. They are annoyed. They are disappointed because the title of the talk is on presentation, effective presentation, and I am giving a talk on some other topic. So therefore, it is irrelevant for the audience. So I have to meet their expectations, and therefore I have to come up with additional information. And of course, how I say that information, that also matters a lot. So I have to take the efforts to put the information in such a way so that the audience is clear, the audience has a better understanding of the information that is shared with them, and they get also a better chance to improve their presentation as well. And of course, the visual impact is also very important. Most of the time it is overlooked because we think that the presentation should always be in the white and black contrast, rather than incorporating the colors, but it is a wrong way of actually visually appealing the audience. We can have the colors, but then we should know how to use the colors. So today I'm going to talk to you about the use of colors. So here in the next concept, I'm going to talk about color contrast. So this concept is very important. Now, to give my example, when I initially started preparing slides, when I started using colors, initially I never used colors. As you could see my slides, and that was in a way back in 2005 and 2006, when I started, preparing the slides, there were no colors. But then when I started using the colors also, the first time when I used the red color, the color contrast, that I used was black. So in the red color box, I used, black color for the content, okay, for the letters. Now, what happened was I always thought that, red and black was a good combination. And for many days, I actually went on thinking about that. But then one fine day, I decided to put another color, and I decided to put the color white. And I found that, white was more attractive than black. Black, in fact, the font size, the content, could not be, it was not visible. The visibility was poor when I used red and black contrast. But if I use red and white contrast, the visibility increased. So that is how I learned that red, goes very well with white rather than with black. In fact, it doesn't go well with black at all. So here with color contrast, I'll be talking about the concept of better visibility, as I told you a little while ago. And then, of course, it sets the mood also. So if we have bright colors, then obviously the mood of the audience will also, change. They will be more, energetic. They will be more lively, and therefore they will be more interactive in the process. And then next is attractiveness. We have to create our slides in such a way that they're attractive for the audience. And then effectiveness, it has to be effective as well. So for example, I have this picture over here. So you can see the purple color goes along very well with the yellow color background as well. And the green color also goes on very well with the yellow color background. So this kind of color contrast is essential, is necessary for us to keep in mind and also learn so that we can use it in our slides. And then the next thing I would like to talk to you about is the categories of colors. So first category is the primary color, then we have the secondary color, and then we have the tertiary color. So here I'll be talking to you about the color wheel, contrast wheel, but a little later. But let us first talk about the primary colors over here. So we have the primary color blue, primary color yellow, and red. These three are the primary colors. The concept of primary color is that I cannot come up with blue color just by combining red and yellow. So blue color is unique. Yellow color also I cannot combine, but red and blue I cannot combine and make a yellow color. So these are the three unique colors. It's from these colors we can combine, okay, and come up with other colors. So if I combine red and yellow, I can come up with the color green. Sorry, blue and yellow, I can come up with the color green. And if I combine red and yellow, I can come up with the color orange. Okay, and this combination, we can come up with many other combination, but this type of combination, blue and yellow combination, that means the green color becomes a secondary color. Red and yellow, if I combine, orange color becomes a secondary color. So the combination of the primary colors leads to secondary colors. And then we are going to talk about that we can come up with a huge range of colors if we keep on combining them. So I would like to talk about the secondary colors now. So we'll go to the contrast color wheel, and mixing two primary colors, we get secondary color. But what leads to the tertiary color? Tertiary color is when we combine one primary color and another secondary color. Okay, so combination of primary color and a secondary color will lead to a tertiary color, and there could be various combinations. So I would suggest that when we are designing our slides, we can keep this contrast wheel, ready with us, so that we can find out that which color in combination with another color can lead to better visibility. So the opposite, we have to go and find the opposite. So for example, here red and green, these are two opposites. So red and green increases the maximum, leads to the maximum visibility. So this according to the contrast wheel, and obviously it has been found out also that it is true. For example, blue and orange. it results in maximum visibility, and yellow and violet, it results in maximum visibility. So if we do not know which color to use, if we use the contrast wheel concept and we keep this in mind, then we can easily relate these two colors and we can come up with slides that leads to better visibility. So this is a very important aspect that that I have learned in my presentation, and I have also implemented the same aspect in my presentation. So now let us go on to the next this thing aspect. So I have given here 3 examples of color combination. So here is a primary red color. I have used this white as the color combination. Then another color is this blue color. I have used the combination light green. So these are the colors I like actually. So I have given you a demonstration. And with the yellow color, I've given the combination brown. These are the 3 examples I've given you. You can come up with many other examples. Now let us move on to the use of images. So apart from colors that helps us in better visibility, we also need to add images in a presentation, because we all know that a picture speaks louder than words. So with a picture, it can be easily understood by the audience. A concept can be easily understood by the audience. And moreover, the picture also helps the audience to relate the concept, to store the information in the mind. And that is why we need to use images. But the how do we use the images, that is also of great concern. Okay, so most of the time, most of us do not know how to use the images, because we just pick up any images that is easily available in Google, but we have to be very careful when we select the images. For instance, I would say that we should always, when we go to Google, we should select for those images that are not licensable, that we have to go for Creative Commons. Or I would say that we can simply, say we can go to images that are free images that can be easily incorporated in our slides. Otherwise, we could be violating the rules of copyright. So therefore, that is one aspect that we need to keep in mind while selecting the images. Okay, so first of all, we need to keep in mind that the images should be of high resolution. Now, how to find out that images are of high resolution? I would recommend that you go to sites like Pixabay, where you can just type free high resolution images on Pixabay in Google, and there are many images that you can come across, but then you have to identify the image that is related to your content, and that is very important. And you have to, that's why I said it should be able to complement the message also, and it should create an impact upon projection. That is, the audience should feel like looking at the image, or should feel attracted towards the image, or feel very good about the image, feel very pleased about the image. And 1 or 2 large images is sufficient, rather than having several small images in your slide. So if it is not required, we can have 1 or 2 large images rather than having several small images, because that will unnecessarily reduce the visibility of the content. Then, like I have this particular image that I have taken it from Pixabay, and you can see the resolution of this image, because it is absolutely clear, and it is not hazy, and it looks bright, so this kind of images should be selected for presentation. And then I'm showing you an example of the appropriate use of images from my slides. Now here in this particular slide, you can see that how I have used the image meaningfully, or rather to complement the message that I have incorporated over here. So these kind of images enhances the understanding of the audience, and it definitely has a greater impact of attention, desire to learn or desire to be part of the presentation develops the curiosity in the learners, and that is very important in our presentation. And look at this image that I have borrowed from the internet, because I did not find any image that I have used in my slides which do not match or do not complement the message. So therefore I have borrowed this image, and you can see there's a combination of so many images. There's so many images incorporated in this at one particular slide, and it does not mean anything. It is very difficult to understand what is actually being conveyed over here. So it is haphazard. So now let us move on to the next aspect, that is the use of images. But then I'm going to talk about certain other important aspects of images. First, I'm going to talk about all the same size. The images that we select should be all of the same size. The size cannot differ. So even if there is a difference in size, I have to reduce it in order to adjust to the size that I have already used earlier. So I cannot use different size images, because that will unnecessarily lead to, it will be not uniform, and the uniformity is very important when we are designing our slides. The uniformity in the font size, the uniformity in the selection of images, the uniformity in the selection of the same size images, and so on. Next, we can use a border. Sometimes, like for example, in this particular slide of mine, I have used the black background. So if I have to add an image over here where there is a combination of black and white color, it will not be visible very clearly. So I can use the white border in order to increase the visibility of the image, which I'll be showing you a little later. And then the images could be arranged either vertically or horizontally. That is up to you how you arrange it. But if you arrange it horizontally throughout your presentation. If you arrange it vertically, then arrange it vertically throughout your presentation. The minimal text, when we're using a chart or a graph, we should not incorporate a lot of text when we are using a graph, because the graph itself is self-explanatory. So the graph itself is sufficient. So we are not going to use text and graphs together. So we have to use minimum text when we are incorporating a graph or a chart. Then the next point I would like to say is, in images itself, I'm going to talk about the empty space around the images. So there should be empty space, that should be, taken care of around the images. There should not be too much of information around the images, because otherwise the audience will be very confused as to what the information is related to that particular image. Like I showed you about the bad proximity slide earlier, you could see that between the two images, there were content. So it was not very clear the particular content was related to which particular image. Then comes the quality clip art. So when we select any image from such as clip art, we have to see to it that there is some quality, that is of high resolution, or the picture is there's clarity in the picture. So all these aspects should be taken into account, and we have to use the same style graphical image throughout. It cannot differ. I'll give you an example so that you have a better understanding. Or rather, I can say, suppose if you have selected cartoon images, okay, right at the beginning of a presentation. So throughout the presentation, we should stick to cartoon images. We are not supposed to, like go to some other image, or we are not supposed to use the image of human beings, cartoon and human beings. It automatically distracts the audience. So if you begin with cartoon images, we should continue with cartoon images throughout a presentation. Then the minimum graphic image, the minimum graphic image that we can use on a slide, it is better. For example, I have seen some of the presentation where people, they incorporate the entire table. They have done some research, and the entire table, they just take a screenshot of the table that they have used it in Word document, and they just paste it on the slide. There is poor visibility, and actually the audience will not be able to understand what is there in the table. Even though you explain, they are not interested, because the table itself, there's so much of information, it automatically demotivates the audience. They are not inclined to listen to what you are saying. So therefore, we have to use minimum graphic image on a particular slide. Sorry. then we have to avoid dull images. So images, should be, they should look attractive. The dull images should be avoided. For example, where the color is not appropriate, there is a fading color, okay, and there is some very light color. You cannot see the face of the person with clarity. All these things have to be avoided when we are selecting the images. So now let me give you some examples. So we should select image of the same texture. So you can get this example. So this is of the same texture, and I have given you the white background because the slide background is black, and we have pictures where the black color is there. So therefore, with that kind of background, it will not be clear. So therefore, the white background, the white border is required. And then there's another example that I'm giving you over here. There's a different texture images. So you can see that both these images are of different texture. In fact, the right hand side image, that is more clear in comparison to the left hand side image. So even though they are the same cartoon, but then we should be able to identify or distinguish, such kind of images and select the one that is that gives you more clarity. And then there's another example of low resolution. So this particular image has low resolution, and we need to go for the high resolution images that I've already given example in the slides ahead. Then the next concept that I'm going to talk about is the knowledge part. The knowledge part is, it has to be factual. That means it has to be practically, it has to be possible for the audience, to understand the content. That is very important. And of course, it has to be well organized. That means it should not be haphazard. It should not move from one slide to the other, in a very random manner. There should be a flow in your presentation. That is very important. So therefore, you have to not only plan your presentation, but you have to also think about the planning process. You have to think, rethink, and then you have to, continue with your presentation, designing a presentation. And you have to be accurate also. So suppose if you're showing a graph, that graph has to be accurate. If you have designed the graph, you have come up with the graph, you should be able to explain the graph all by your own. And most of the time, we should avoid, copying graphs, from the website. We should try and design our own graphs, or even the images also. It should be, to the extent possible, we should be able to design our own slides. We should be able to bring our own images, or we should be able to create, borrow the images, but then we should be able to create something unique all the time, so that we do not repeat what the others are doing. And with this, I would like to say that the role of the speaker is therefore very important. The speaker has to enable the audience to learn from the presentation, or rather enable the audience to transform his or her concept of preparing the PowerPoint slides. In this case, the PowerPoint slides, of course, but in the context of any other topic, the audience should be able to transform himself or herself. That should be the main idea of the speaker. And then, of course, the speaker should also show that he cares for the audience, show that he is concerned about the audience, and therefore he wants to share all kinds of information with the audience, so that the audience are able to learn in the process. And then, of course, as I told you, the speaker has to be unique. So in one way you can be unique is like speaking about your own self. Here in this particular presentation, I have given examples from my own slide. I have shown you that in my previous, during the previous years of my designing or presenting, when I designed the slides, it had a total, different approach, because I was only concerned with the content rather than with the design of the slides as such. So therefore, when I am talking about my own journey of my presentation, of how I learned how to improve on my presentation, it becomes more effective. And moreover, with these kind of presentation topics, so many people might have already delivered these kind of topics. It's not a new topic. So many people might have delivered on effective presentation. presentation. There might be innumerable presentations on YouTube, channels, but then I have to be unique. So my unique quality will be when I'm talking about my own journey, when I'm talking about how I learned to prepare PowerPoint slides in a more effective way, how I was able to draw the attention of my students when I created PowerPoint slides, and that is going to have a greater impact on the audience. Now, let us move on to the next aspect, that is the content delivery, the third point. So the content delivery has to be in terms of using the transition. We can use transition, we can use animations, and we can use the design. The design, I would say that we have to create it on our own to the extent possible, and let it be simple, but then we need to create it on our own in order to be unique. And animations also, when we add animations, especially when we are delivering it online, the entire presentation becomes more vivid, it becomes more real, and therefore it again draws the audience, or it will definitely help your students to get attracted towards the presentation, and they will be more interested to or look forward to your presentations. So let us talk about user transition first. So here I'll be talking about the user transitions. Now the transitions are actually elements that we add when we're moving from one slide to the other. So they change the entire concept, or we change from one slide to the other, and we can manipulate the changes in many different ways. Then it should be smooth, of course. It should not distract the audience, or it should not be haphazard. If it is haphazard, if it is not smooth, then of course it distracts the audience. And it should be like natural, like real world objects. It should flow naturally. So then transitions are of course very helpful. You have seen in my slides, I have used some elements of transition, if you have observed it. And then I would say that we're using transition, we are actually communicating non-verbally with the audience, and that again can actually hold the attention of the audience, or keep the audience drawn to your presentation. Then comes the next concept, that is the different types of transition. The first type of transition is the subtle transition. In the subtle transition, it is very basic, that we usually, when we are moving from one slide to the other, you must have seen how I have moved. That is related to the subtle transition element. Then the simple animations, or the visually interesting also. Then next we move on to this transition that you saw right now. This transition is related to the exciting transition. Now this exciting transition, they are visually, they're more complex animations actually, and they're visually more interesting, no doubt. But sometimes, using too much of exciting transition could make feel as if the presentation look less professional. So then we should use it sparingly, and we should not use it very frequently. I have used it in order to show you the difference between subtle transition and exciting transition. Then this transition that you just now saw, it is related to dynamic transition, and dynamic transition is very attractive and effective also. But again, I would say that we need to use it sparingly, and we need not use it very frequently in our presentations. It adds to the appearance definitely, and it helps the audience to focus. And so this presentation, that is what we should do. We should add it very sparingly. Now let us move on to the use of animations. Now the use of animations, I would say that we need to use the animations in practically all the slides, but then we should not use too many animations in one slide. We should go use a one particular animation. For example, there are animations like you have appear animation, you have disappear animation, you have fade animation. Okay, so you have there are many innumerable sorts of animation. But if we use all the three types of animations, for example, in one particular slide, then it is going to create a lot of confusion. And as a presenter also, I might be confused. Okay, so I'm going to use only one animation information, one aspect of animation in one slide. And if to the extent possible, I will maintain that same animation throughout my presentation rather than complicating the matters. Okay, so the presentation becomes more dynamic. As I told you, it is more vivid when we use animations, and information is of course more memorable also, because the vivid information actually helps the audience, to pay more attention, to listen to the speaker, and therefore the information becomes more memorable, and it helps to emphasize the points. And also we should be able to use it sparingly and not use it to a large. That's why I told you we should not add too many animations in one slide. We can add the minimum animation required, and we should follow the same pattern throughout the presentation. So I'll be telling you a little bit of animation when I'm doing that hands-on workshop, so you can get an idea of how animations can be used. Then next, I would like to talk about the design. The design is very important. The design of your slide actually will then indicate or whether you are able to understand the theme of your presentation. As per the theme of your presentation, you can come up with these designs, and we should be able to relate all the shapes to the message that we are conveying. So choosing appropriate images, that is the most important aspect in designing, and then appropriate layout of content, how we use the layout in order to put forward the content. And we have to make use of the empty space, the good use of empty space. That has to be space has to be used properly, and of course appropriate color scheme, and of course animations in moderation. So these are the aspects that we are going to remember while creating our design. It is not very difficult to create to design our own PowerPoint slides. We can design our own slides very easily without spending much time. We can be very simple, but then if we do it on our own, it definitely we become unique in a way. Our presentation becomes unique, and if we are unique, then of course we are making a lot of difference. We are able to draw the audience's attention to our presentation because of our unique quality. So this is the end of my first half of the presentation, but I will give you an example of good and poor design. So from my own slides. So as you can see over here, this is the slide that I have designed. It is designed on my own, created the slide on my own, or without, just I have to take in the image, one of the image from Pixabay. The other things, I have designed it on my own. And here, as you can see, that even though I have designed this slide on my own, but there is a lot of confusion in this slide. First of all, the title of the slide cannot come at the center or the side. It has to come, on the top, and it has to be centered. So the fact that I have written it on the side, it doesn't make sense. And moreover, there's a black, the empty space over here. This empty space, is not actually, helping you in any way to convey a message, or it is not actually trying to say anything about your presentation. So it is a waste, and it creates a feeling as if it is a different slide altogether. There are three slides. So there's one slide over here and there's another slide over here. Though it is one slide only, but I've incorporated so many shapes over here. So all this multiple shapes that I've incorporated over here is not required. It in fact does not enhance the presentation. It in fact distracts the audience. It is not appealing. It does not motivate the audience, and it can be an example of poor design. So this also I have designed, and this also I have designed, and you can see it for yourself. While when you're comparing, you can see the difference in both of the designs. And now I would like to go to the second half of my talk, that is a hands-on workshop on designing PowerPoint slides. Okay, so I hope all of you are ready with your laptop and desktop, and you will be doing it along with me, or whatever I'll be doing. So I'll move on to yeah. So what I'll do is I will create a new slide over here. I hope all of you are ready with your laptop and desktop. Shall I begin?
Just give 2 minutes for everyone.
Okay, yeah.
Malavika,
Yeah,
just give 2 minutes for everyone.
Yeah,
In case
sure,
somebody is
sure.
not ready, they'll get ready.
Yeah, okay, fine. We can start. Okay, so as you can see, there's this blank slide over here. So I'm showing you the shape, the design that I have created during this presentation. So I have to create a circle over here. So I go to insert in your presentation. So this way you can create the grass. And once this grass is created, your PowerPoint slides is done. The circle with the clouds, and this is done. You can have a circle. Recently, I have created another design where I have used the same circle, and the clouds are of course different. I have used a different set of clouds. The background is black, but I've added those stars over here. The stars I've added, and my circle is white throughout my presentation. So it indicates that that is a moon with a and the sky, we can see the stars and the clouds are there. So this is how you can come up with new, ideas for your presentation. So with this, I would like to, I hope all of you have done it with me, or you found it a little bit difficult, or you found it very boring to design your own slides. Could you please unmute yourself and you could tell me what is it? What is your opinion, or what is your response, while designing your slides? Were you able to do it, or you found it very boring, or very, not interesting at all to design the slides? It's better you take, some concept, from the website or from Google. What is it? Could you please tell me? Otherwise, what you can do is you can design a particular concept and you can show it to me. So I can give you 5 minutes for that. You can design that and you can show it to me. Let's see, it could be anything. You could design a house, you could come up with something else, you could come up with a different shape. It could be in the form of a cloud, it could be in the form of a star, it could be anything. So if you can design and you can show it to me, that will be of really interesting if you can do that. I'm giving you 5 minutes for that. You can turn on your video and you can actually show me what you have designed. You can turn it on. Yes, ma'am. Can you turn on your video and you can show me if you have designed something on your own? Yes, Sharmila madam, is anybody doing it?
I don't know, like they must be doing it.
Yeah,
I myself, I started, but after going to insert, I didn't get the shapes only. Wait.
Ma'am, I am doing.
The moment you
Ma'am,
go
I
to
am doing.
Yeah. She's
there
doing
is a shape.
good, like
Yes, ma'am, I am
Dr.
doing.
Smita madam is doing.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Good.
Can I share my screen, ma'am?
Yes, yes. So I have to stop sharing, right?
Yes,
Otherwise, you will not be able to share. Okay, okay. I'll stop sharing. Yes, ma'am. You can share your screen.
is my screen shared, ma'am?
Yes, your screen is shared. But I can't see your PowerPoint slides.
Okay. Just, just.
Yes. Now oh, wow. It's really nice. Wonderful.
Okay, ma'am.
Wonderful. Very nice, very nice. Yeah, this is the way you can design your own slides actually. Only thing you need to give a color to the background. You
Okay,
can give
ma'am.
any color. You can give a black color or you can give some other color.
Okay, I will fill it.
Uh, Usually when you give a black color, then the other colors, the dark colors, they look more attractive
Okay,
with
ma'am.
a black color background. Yeah,
Now,
yeah, very nice, very nice, very nice.
okay.
Yes. Yeah. So well created. Anybody else who has created anything? Any other slide? Anything you have done?
Yeah, Sharmila, even I would like to share my slide. I'm Sushma Shrivastava.
She is Dr. Sushma Srivastav, ma'am.
Oh, okay. Yes. Hello, ma'am.
She'll be sharing. She'll be sharing.
I've tried making a MOSFET, which is a device.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this,
very nice, very nice. I mean, if it fits into your
yeah.
the concept, the
Actually,
message,
yes, ma'am.
absolutely appropriate. But
Yeah, I can change some colors. I can use a
yeah,
different color here, and then I
uh,
can name all these terminals and all. So with that, I can
uh,
use this as a device.
yes, very nice, very nice. Only thing again, you have to take care of the background. You have to add a
Yeah,
color to the background,
yes, ma'am.
so
Yeah,
it
yeah,
stands out. Yeah,
yeah.
very nice. Very
Thank,
well created. Very nice.
thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else who would like to share the slide? Yes, anybody else would like to share the slide? Sharmila madam, are you sharing your slides?
No, oh, no, 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 no. I actually haven't started only
Okay, okay.
like I take
So,
little time. It is I do it very slowly, so I'm not the right person.
anybody else would like to share the slides? Okay, I suppose there's no one would like to share the slides. Okay, so I'll go back to my presentation. I'll share my slide now. Yeah. So I hope you had a fair idea of how unique you can be when you create your own slides. And it is not very difficult. The shapes are already there in PowerPoint slides. We have to manipulate the shapes a little bit in order to suit to our needs, in order to suit to the needs of the audience. And that is how we can create our own slides, and we can be unique also in a presentation. So with this, I would like to thank all of you for your patient listening. I would also like to say that I have my YouTube channel, Malavika's Magic. The link will be posted in the chat box for you all. So you can have a look at the slides that I have designed over there, the presentation slides. And wherever I have been invited for a talk, I have tried to use create my own slides. So you can see that and have a look at it, and maybe you can also design your own slides accordingly. And I have my email ID also. So you can always write to me if you have any doubts or if you have any queries related to the presentations. And this is my contact number. This is also my WhatsApp number. You can always send your queries in the WhatsApp number also. You can even call me if you have any difficulty. So I hope you understood what I've tried to present. And if you have any questions, I'm ready for the